So we say that why don't we stop this race to the bottom together? So now first we come out with agreement. Thailand is 20%. You want to go to 35%. Every year must go up by 1.5. We are 24 already. You want to go to 35%, 11. So every year we go up by 1.1. So that means we don't lose comparative advantage as we go up.
Because we all go together.
You know?
Welcome back to Yamcha Sessions. Today we have Dr. Jaya, who's the leader, captain of Parti Sosialis Malaysia. Chairman, you know.
It's not
top,
a pirate
the top. Top of the top, you know, and a bit of introduction. Actually, Christopher is the one that recommended you to come on the podcast, right? And I was doing a bit of research on you. And it's so fascinating because you have your Wikipedia page says that you're born in Tanah Melayu, not in Malaysia.
All right.
Because you were born before independence.
Correct.
And you're also born the same year my dad is born.
Oh.
Yeah.
Same here.
My dad is born in October, but you are born before that, right? And I was like, wow, how a few months can dictate such a big difference.
But he too was before Merdeka.
Sorry, do you mind?
Yes.
He too was before Merdeka as well, 55.
Yes,
55.
that's correct.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
correct,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
correct.
Wow. It's so crazy
Yeah.
to see that. Yeah. Normally this podcast is kind of like how we get into your early days. I know you're from Johor, born in Johor, right? If I'm not mistaken. Then you studied in Penang.
Correct.
Yeah. So maybe we can go through that journey first because I love to unpack how people grow into their roles. Okay. So the podcast is usually for kids, for younger generation kids who are unsure of what they want to do. So when they look at people's lives or they listen to it and they're like, wow, this is how you got into where you are. Okay. So maybe you tell us how you got from Johor to Penang. Is it like you were born there and then you were raised there? Or?
Well, my father was in government service. He's a doctor in government service. So he got transferred all over the place. So he was in Johor. Then later on he's in Kuantan.
Okay.
I was there, but I went for kindergarten in Kuantan. Then he went to Alostar. So I was in primary school in Alostar for 3 years.
Wow.
Then he went to Penang. And that's why he's there for till he retired.
Oh.
So Penang was like where I spent a lot of my time.
Okay.
And
Okay.
It's also my mom's hometown.
I see.
He lives in Penang. So Penang feels like hometown lah.
I see.
Other places I was young, very young, and didn't know people.
Wow. So your dad was also from Penang, or is he?
No,
from,
he's from Ipoh.
he's from Ipoh. I see. And you're now currently actually based in Ipoh. So.
Yes, I've gone back to Ipoh.
Oh.
My father's hometown. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. When did you move back?
1986.
Oh wow.
Before you were born, I think.
That is true. That is true, Dr. Jayan.
Okay. All right. And I know your background. In if correct me if I'm wrong. You have a Christian background, your Christian upbringing, and you were mentioning on the previous podcast, the Do More podcast, about how you were raised to always like give back to society, give back to the community, and everything like that, right? So, like when you were growing up, your mom instilling all these values and your dad instilling all these values in you. Is that why you decided to pursue being a doctor, or is there other factors that made you want to go there?
I suppose it was, because from very young, I mean, like I remember, in standard 4, I just got the school results. I was the second in the class.
Oh, yo.
So I,
Top performer.
the top performer and all. I got in the car. I told my father, and his response was, don't forget that you have educated parents. Your mother's a teacher, helps you with your work. So don't let this go to your head. 10-year-old boy, getting this kind of information.
Teaching you about the concept of privilege.
So from that itself, so my family kind of gave these values lah. It's basically liberal Christianity. That it's amana, a trust.
Yeah.
Things given to you are a trust.
I
And
see.
it's meant for not only you, but also for others.
It's
That's
like,
it's a religious kind of upbringing, And I think it's,
strangely enough, I mean, not to say my parents were very religious. I think my mom gradually became religious. My dad was never too religious, but I feel like both mom and dad kind of instilled this into us as well. Like, be grounded, give back, you know, you should be grateful for what you have and everything, right? Unfortunately, both of us are not doctors lah. You know, we couldn't get there lah.
It's because we were never second in class. That's all.
Yeah. That's why. Yeah. So you continued studying in Penang, and then you decided to continue education in Penang as well, or did you move?
No, actually, it's a bit convoluted.
Okay.
I was in science, I was doing well, but I was already rebelling. When I was in secondary school, I was not happy. You know, I thought I'm going to become a middle class. You know that song, Little Boxes?
Little Boxes. Okay.
Yeah, it's a song, you know, I think by Peter, Paul and Mary. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, but how we just become middle class and accept the values and carry on like that. So I didn't apply for medicine. I got good grades in my HSC. I didn't apply for medicine. I applied to the US.
Oh, okay.
I went to study in the US.
Oh, which part did you study in the US?
I was in Connecticut.
Oh,
Got
Connecticut.
it.
Oh, East Coast.
Coast.
Andrew here is also a product of the
Studied
East Coast.
in New York.
I see.
But Connecticut's fantastic.
Yeah,
Love it.
further north. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I was there, and I didn't do medicine. I didn't do science. I did liberal arts, political science, philosophy.
Right.
Wow.
That was 1974. You know.
Right. That sort of makes sense relative to your political career as opposed
Yes.
with poli-sci. And
That's right. So, and that was the time. Must remember towards the tail end of the Vietnam War. There's a lot of radicalization in American campuses. So I got exposed. So I went here. Basically, I was unhappy about poverty in this country. You know, the difference between the rich and poor. You know, stuff like that. And I went there, and there were courses in Marxism in the place of study.
Wow, courses in Marxism.
Oh yes, there were. So
Wow.
I studied. I took the courses to see what the guy's talking about, and then it made sense. It made a lot of sense. It put a lot of things in context. You know, and you know, like when I went to New York City, for example, and you see the rubbish on the subway, and things are so run down.
Still the same.
And I was thinking, wow, the richest country in the world, and one of the biggest cities, and it's in this mess. What the hell is going on?
Yeah.
You know, so those kinds of things, in a way, gave me political education, you know, and the vague sense I felt for, you know, justice and all that, gave it a more firm understanding, you know, learned about capitalism.
Yeah,
you know,
but I
those
think
kind of
America
things.
is like ultimate capitalism, right? So you're gonna see the upper echelons of New York City, the Chelsea, and all those the rich, and then you also see the not so fortunate lah.
That's right, Harlem and all
Yeah,
that. So I think it's gotten worse since then. You know, so I think that was a big political education, being there and studying this. Then among my Malaysian friends, some were saying, because we became political, so they said, why don't you go back and do medicine? You know, you can directly help people.
Yeah.
You know, it puts you in touch with people. So I applied for medicine to MU from America. I didn't apply earlier.
wow.
Luckily, I didn't apply earlier. If I applied earlier and turned it down, I'd be turned, you know, I won't get it. So I applied from there
Oh wow.
and I got it. So I dropped out.
You dropped out of your
my-
university in Connecticut.
Yes.
Wow.
And then I took a year of absence. I took a year first.
Okay.
I came back here and joined medical school, and now I went back. So yeah, I dropped out. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm a dropout. Yes.
From second class to drop out, and then you go and further in. Wow.
I did medicine here. So that's how I went to medicine. I mean, I chose it, but not first round. So when I went in, I was like older than my class, right? I was 2 years older, you know, and I've been overseas. I've lived on my own, cooked on my own and all that.
Yeah.
So you come in with a more confidence.
Definitely lah.
You know,
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
and also you're coming in because you want to be something, part of society, making a change. Wasn't clear about politics then, but wanted to make a change.
I see.
So I came in as a much more mature student compared to my classmates.
I think quite common lah, actually. You know, in the US, at least when I studied there as well, I met a lot of unique people from different parts of the world, and they were of different ages. Very common for them to continue their studies even in their 40s, 50s, some even 60s, right? But I feel like they definitely do have that air of them. They're more confident. Some of them are like ex-business owners, right? They just want to have that paper, or they want to have that cert. Yeah. Okay. So when you finished your studies and you became a doctor, right? Was that when you decided to go into politics a bit, or did it take time for you to grow into the
Okay.
Yeah.
Even when studying, I was keen on finding out about society. So in my first year, the end of the year break, there is a society called the Tamil Language Society in
Okay.
Malaya,
Okay.
Got it.
which they organize 1 month programs where they send a group of students to go and stay in some estates and interact with the other students, the actual estate students there.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So when I came back to University of Malaysia to do medicine, I sought these guys out and said, look, you must send me on this. I'm volunteering. I want to go.
Okay.
So they're very happy. Normally medical students don't go for this.
Yeah.
So I went for that. And it's the first time I've been in an estate, lived in an estate. We use mainly English in my house. So I had to relearn my Tamil by going there, So I had to learn Tamil again,
But you had your core foundation.
My grandmother spoke to me in Tamil all the while, but she passed away when I was about 8 years old.
Okay.
So after that, we just were
Quite a
speaking,
while,
Yeah,
yeah.
then we just speaking English, a lot of English at home and hardly speaking Tamil. So I couldn't speak, but I think it was there. So I started speaking and it slowly came back.
Oh wow. Wow.
so-
After such a long few years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I learned it back, but so maybe it also helped that I had it before.
Yeah.
So then, so from then, I was already involved in this kind of thing, So once we went for this particular set of estates, by the way, it's Sungai Siput.
Yeah.
So after that, we holidays, the students, about 18 of us who went to 3 different estates, we'll go back and continue our tuition, continue helping the kindergarten, continue doing those kinds of, so kept that relationship alive. So it started then itself, you see.
I see. So the influence also actually started from there. There's a lot of grassroots stuff that you did. Oh, wow. That is so fascinating, man. But I heard a few of your YouTube videos. Hey, sorry, before I continue, what's the timestamp now? I'll cut this. Sorry? Okay. Can you hear my audio? Oh, is it? Because I realized that my I don't know whether you can hear me well. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Sorry. What was I talking about again?
Sungai Siput.
Sungai Siput. So that's actually where a lot of your influence already, you kind of planted the seeds at that time lah. Oh, okay.
Unknowingly. I mean, there's no intention then to go into
Yeah.
politics,
But I think if you were there and you were sort of like assisting with the community, right? I'm sure, naturally as a human, right, you kind of want to progress, right? You don't just want to remain stagnant. So I think you kind of push and then you became more influential over time also lah, right? Do you feel like that's how you kind of grew into it? Or was there like a spark of some sorts?
No more spark, you see, because we were organizing the estate tuition programs. After that, first 3 estates, then 5, 6 estates, tuition. We're getting younger people in the estate to teach other students, So we're having a whole fundraising and then sending people for vocational education. So stuff like that we're doing. And then we got involved in also with people who were being evicted from their housing. So that also we were doing,
I see.
because we heard about it and then start getting involved. And that's the time when Sami Velu was there in Sungai Siput. And actually he was the one who requested the ministry to transfer me out of Perak because he didn't like me getting
Too much influence.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's a huge 1 year of, they first wanted to promote me and send me to Pahang. So I turned it down. Then they wanted to, so I was transferred about 3 or 4 times that year. And I turned it down because on promotions.
Right.
They also offered me to send me overseas to do studies. You pay for it, you go and study something.
Wow, dangling all these carrots.
Yeah, so I said, no, I'm quite happy I've studied enough. I said, no, you go, we'll send you, we'll send your wife also, both of you go and study, So but we didn't want to because we were already involved with a group. We were not a party then. We were just an NGO. And we felt that we're trying to send us out because they didn't like the work we were doing. Because by that time, we'd been arrested about 3-4 times, protesting eviction and all that. Getting a bit popular with
I did read about
people.
that.
Yeah. So finally, they transferred me to Sarawak and sent my service record to Sarawak. So no pay. The pay here stopped. You got to go there to get your pay.
Oh, wow.
So so basically, I was being
You
go
were
to Sarawak
pushed,
or
yeah.
else. So I resigned. I resigned because elections were coming up. So I said, why not? I'll stand since they're pushing me out. So I was very happy as a doctor in the government service. I don't know whether I resigned or not, but I was very happy. But because of this kind of pressure, I was forced. So I resigned. I went to resign, but the DG at that time, Tan Sri Baka, said, why are you resigning? I told him I'm going to stand. He said, no, where are you going to stand? I told him, he said, look, you're not going to win. Why are you throwing everything away? I said, I already decided. Then he said, look, there is an avenue for government servants to resign to stand for elections to get retirement. Do you want that? I said, if it's possible, why not? So he arranged that for me. So I got a government pension, not then, I only got it when I was 55. But,
later on.
But I got onto the pension scheme, which is good of him.
Wow. Okay.
So that's when I left 1999, my first election, the one I lost. But yeah, that's how I left. I was pushed actually.
I see.
Oh.
Yeah. And in a way, it's funny because, I wouldn't have left otherwise. And so he pushed me out and I challenged him, So it was like, he brought it on himself in a way.
Because it's likely a symptom of him feeling threatened to some degree.
Yes.
Wanted to nip the bud while it's quote unquote young.
Yes, right. That's right. I think that's what he did. Yeah, he tried to.
But so I'm not so clear about your role as a doctor also while you were in this era, right? Were you like a general practitioner? Were you like a specialist in something at the time or?
Well, I was in government service.
Okay.
All those years I was in government service. And I specialized about 1990.
Okay.
I studied this one. Those days, they have what they call the parallel pathway. You can just do your studies, take your first part, then you got to go to UK for your second part.
Oh, okay.
So I did that. So I got my specialist in 1991. Then I was transferred to Teluk Intan for a few years.
Yeah.
I was there for a few years. Then I came back and did chest medicine. I was in charge of the TB control program.
Oh, okay.
So that was what I was doing. So
Did you think at that time it was so challenging to do both NGO work and doctor work? Because I feel like that's quite a heavy load, right? Like your weekends, even like just a couple of weeks ago, we also do the recording and everything, right? Like you are still so active in the space, even on weekends and everything like that. How did you manage that during your career, man? It must have been
a bit crazy, huh?
A bit, right? And it's quite like a mental taxing thing, because you see your name in the papers, you see like people talk about you. Then obviously when you're being pushed out, people talk, people ask, it's quite a lot of noise,
Yeah. The thing is, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being a doctor, It's very challenging, it makes you think about issues. Each patient is a problem to solve.
Yeah.
What's actually causing it, what are causing the symptoms. And so I liked that. And I had a good working environment. I worked, my fellow doctors were friendly and so it was good. Doctor work was good, wasn't no hassle, And then working outside, we were part of a group and you're working with people and trying to see how to organize people and mobilize them. People usually are very scared, Normal people who are, squatters and all that, they get notice and they're very, very scared and they're very apathetic. And to motivate them, come together and talk. And
you feel like there's energy that comes from making them confident in coming out and all that.
And I guess a good thing is that my wife was with me too. Because my wife was someone who went for that initial estate program in 1977. She also came on the same program.
Is that how you guys met? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She went to another estate and I went to, but we all work close together. So she's been part of the team since then, and she also, understands this, what this, she also feels for these things.
Yeah.
So that helped.
You need to have some level of
support.
Like, because you sacrifice a lot, right? When you choose a career and you choose to help. It's like there's only so much. You only have 24 hours a day, right? So you only, and you have to sleep 8 out of the 24 at least, right? Yeah. So 16 of it, you're just giving out so much of yourself.
But we're enjoying ourselves, because you had a group you're working with. They were nice
feeds you energy.
Yeah, young people in the estate side. We had friends. We will go there, do some work, then all have dinner together, talk, and then come back.
The community, feels like
community, and it was. I didn't see it as a sacrifice. I was doing something I liked, that I wanted to do.
Mm.
So it's not a sacrifice.
Wow.
And you learn so much.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. Especially when you're so near and then you speak to people day to day, right? You know that what they go through is so different. You're not caught in your own bubble, lah, right? Yeah. I want to ask, right? So like when you're in this like border of going into politics already, there's this like negative connotation when it comes to going into politics, lah. Especially in Malaysia, I feel.
True.
You know,
Yeah.
and when you were crossing that line to going into politics, right? There are a lot of people in your families, your friends will tell you like, hey, you know, you're going into this type of territory. You're going to be... 'Cause I was listening to your podcast with on the Do More podcast.
Yeah.
And you were saying how you drive like a Toyota Vios. Yeah. And you were talking about how it would look to the volunteers if you drove a better car and everything. I'm like, wow, actually it's so true, you know. It is really something that you have to set an example of, right? Otherwise people are just going to be looking at you like you're just like the rest of them. You know?
Correct.
And when you are going into that, right? How did it make you feel? Like, did you feel like you will never be tempted by things like that?
No, I'm scared I'll be tempted, you know. I mean, that's normal, it's
Very
human
human of
nature.
you.
Yes. You know, I think you got to be very careful all the time that you'll be tempted. You know, what was I going to say? I was going to say something.
Like you did mention on his podcast, you know, it's like minimum 5-star hotels. You know, and then they have quote and unquote anonymous donations. Stuff like that. And then later on they bring you out for lunch and then they say, oh, you know, I'd rather have this bill not passed. Stuff like that.
That's what happened, You know, but the thing is, you know, we went into politics interestingly because our grassroots actually pushed us in a way. See, we were doing all these campaigns. We had a campaign we had formed a network of estates. And we were asking for certain things like we wanted a monthly wage, we wanted better conditions, 24 hours electricity, because some of them didn't have 24 hours electricity. Better schools. So had a whole number of things for estates. Then we're also working with Peneroka Bandar, the squatters.
Okay.
So we wanted the government to recognize them and give them grants where they were. Or if you want to evict them, give them an alternative place. So we had a list of demands. So 1995, elections came up. So we met this. So we had, like, we're talking about estates, talking about 20, 30 estates we're in contact with. And Peneroka Bandar maybe about 10, 15. So we got them as a committee, national committee, and said, shall we use these elections? So we made a list of our demands and we had a statement saying, I from this party, if I win, will bring up these things in the Dewan Undangan Negeri. Or I'll bring up these things in the parliament. Ask them to sign. Give us a copy and you keep a copy, you know. And then what we found was, the government guys didn't want to sign and the opposition also didn't want to sign. They cannot commit like this. They said, look, not asking you to promise you're going to bring about this change. Just talk about it. Just talk about it. But they didn't want to sign, you see. It commits me too much. So after that, we had a meeting after the elections because we arranged, that means all these estates and all these quarter areas, they had these forms with them. And fellas come to ask them for vote. They say, come. How about this one? You sign or not? So they forced them, put pressure on them, you see. And so we had a review. So they're all very critical. Said, all these fellas tak boleh pakai lah, you know. Then they said, we must form our own party.
Okay.
Idea came like that. We must form our own party. Why don't we form our own party? You know? So then the idea came, oh yeah, why not? You know, because we also thought that politics is, you know, for the crooks and the cunning people. And,
the perception is there.
We had a bad impression of politicians. We want to be social activists and work with the people. But then here we found that to take the thing to the next level, to bring in laws, you need that. And then if these fellas won't take it from you, then you got to go in there, you know. So that was it came from our grassroots. Which said, you know, I can remember the meeting one guy just stood up and said, you should go. We should form a party, we should go in. So then I said, okay, sounds good. Sounds logical.
Sounds logical. Makes sense.
You know, makes sense. So then we started, you know, talking around, you know, what's the name of the party, you know, sort of Justice Party, Workers' Party. Then we said, whatever we call it, we're going to be, you know, labeled as socialists.
So might as well just go
ahead.
Right.
You know, we are socialists. So
Own it.
Own it. We're going to fight about it. Then we fight them on it. Not to pretend to be something else.
Wow.
So that's when we decided to form the party. 1996 we decided. and only finally gave in our registration in 1998. We turned down a couple of times. Then we took the Home Minister to court for turning us down. Then he became the Prime Minister, Badawi. Became the Prime Minister.
Rest in peace.
Then after that, in 2008, we were already appealing up to the federal court. And then they said, look, you withdraw it, we will register you. So we withdrew and we were registered. So it took a long time to register.
Wow.
So the first couple of elections, we stood under, the Pakatan Harapan, Pakatan Raya at that time. We stood on their platform.
I see.
But when you decided to commit to being like full on, I'm going to call it PSM, right? Did you also consider the fact that people might see it as somewhat radical in some way? Because, it's all a perception game, right? A majority of the time people have perceptions on what, the word capitalist is so strong. The word socialist is so strong.
Yeah.
But I think in reality, you got to have a mixture of everything, right? It's quite a gray area, If you're going to go full on socialism also, I don't think it's going to operate, right? People are going to get a bit lazy. People are not going to strive for better ideas and everything like that. But did you consider this is like, I think perception also is going to be seeing us as a very...
Yeah, we thought we'd have to take it on, And anyway, we were already doing things, like demonstrating or preventing eviction of people, breaking of their houses. So we're already doing things that were
quite in there.
Quite, aggressive. So we're already doing that. So didn't see this as such a big thing. But you're right, like you see, when you are talking about socialism in the 21st century, we really must look back at the last 100 years and see what other people have done in socialism. Like, for example, why did China had all this, they actually eradicated capitalists.
Yeah.
And they were having these communal farms. Why did they switch back to the own plots? And you go back and study and you find that when they did that, when they switched back to their own plots, people actually, the production actually went up threefold.
Oh.
Because when you have a commune of 50 people working and everyone works and everyone gets equally, the hard-working fella gets as much as the lazy fella. So it makes everyone, put in the minimum
Yep.
But when you divide up the land into 3 or 5 acres and say, this is yours, this much you must give to the commune to give to the state. The remainder is yours, you can sell in the market. Then the people are more incentivized to work, and they give their part.
And then they're willing to
and
go
the extra,
beyond
and the rest of it. So I think those kinds of experiences is something that we must take cognizance of, human beings are strange, when the community is under threat, people are prepared to give their lives.
Yeah.
In war and all that, people are prepared to sacrifice themselves. A granite is thrown, the fellow pulls himself out of the brand, so his friends, they do crazy things like that. So people are prepared to be very altruistic and sacrificial.
That's so positive the way you think of this, though, I just want to say.
But the people do that because in a time of stress, the whole community is going to be snuffed out by this aggression. Then you don't think of personal survival, you think of your family. You think
Total.
So people are, but in times of peace, when you're working, and those guys are being lazy and not working, and I'm working like a shit, what the hell? The fella is so lazy and relaxing, and I'm working hard, and we're getting the same money,
Yeah.
I'm not going to work hard. I also work like him,
Yeah.
So that is human nature. So I think you're trying to kind of construct a new society. You got to understand these things, and don't expect people to work very hard in that kind of circumstance. So I think what China did, where they did this kind of thing. So I think when you talk of socialism in this century, we must look and see what happened in the last century, what worked, what didn't work,
And how you can take
and
things
take
that work.
parts of it. So like now, we are talking more of a mixed economy. Allow small businesses. Why you want to go every hairdressing salon? You want to go nationalize? Every roti sana store nationalize. What for?
Yeah.
What do you do? They're quite functional, but the big guys who bully all the rest because of
That's
the market
when-
power. Maybe that's where you got to look and see either you control them with legislation,
Yeah.
or you make it something that's owned by a trust. You got to, so now you got to think of a market, some kind of market socialism.
Yeah.
China is doing maybe some
To balance the
variations.
power a bit, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. If you have everything owned by the state, there's too much power in the state. So the economy is partly owned by people. partly owned by businesses, by cooperatives, by workers, groups. That kind of divides out I think
The power.
The other thing in society, I think human beings, you can't handle power too much, too well, I think this guy Tolkien, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, Tolkien.
Once you put on that ring,
you're
it changes your personality,
Yeah.
I think he's talking about human beings. That's the truth.
And the ring
Too
is the
much-
metaphor of power. lah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too much power, I think human beings just can't handle it. I mean, unless
History has
shown it,
reflected that. lah.
So these are things that we got to recognize. So the separation of powers, the balancing of different groups, keeping the politics and the economics separated. These are things we got to factor into the society we are dreaming.
Do you think it's also a culturally different thing? Because you see, if you look at a lot of the Nordic countries, somehow for them, this socialist structure works so well for them. A bit taxes are a bit high, cost of living is very high, that type of thing. But you can see that they are living very good quality lives, And when you look at the transition of how China was somewhat communist socialist and then now they are embracing a capitalist market, they found that right balance, if you will. I don't know what Malaysia's balance is, you see, because a lot of the countries and a lot of them, going back to my statement of culture, are very monoculture. The difference is, I think, with Malaysia, is like we're so multicultural, So it's so difficult because how do you implement a system in which it sort of allows fairness for multiracial harmony? It's very difficult, because I remember I was listening to that episode as well. You were talking about how, for example, they were I think if correct me if I'm wrong, you were talking about how the Malay votes are very important in some way, right? Because if you're going to call them immigrants or whatever, also because technically also, can't really say lah, right? Then how are they any different? And then you lose the votes and then in the end, progress is halted. So I don't know where that balance is, for here.
I think I'm glad you're saying that because then you're recognizing that this is actually quite a difficult situation. We've got a kind of, in some ways, an artificial country just created by colonial economy, people being drawn in. Then Britain just added on Sabah and Sarawak to us because they don't really go to Sukarno, So it's a country that's cobbled together more by colonial interests than the people themselves saying this is what our borders are. So I think we've got to be a little bit more patient with ourselves and give ourselves the time to develop, And I think the 1957 Constitution is quite a fair document, because it does see the equality of people before the law. We have equality when you go to school. We have equality when you go to hospital.
That's true.
We have equality. If your house gets broken in by a robber, the police come anyway. Fire. Those all are common. Where it is a bit different is where it gives a nod to Nusantara Melayu, the fact that this is a Malay area, homeland to start with, is that they recognize Malay as the national language, that Islam's religion of the federation. They continue with the institution of constitutional monarchs. All those things are nods to the fact that it is Nusantara Melayu. And then you have Article 153, which is not because, I think the Ketuanan argument came later. I think historically look at it, 153 was enacted because the Malays then were economically disadvantaged compared to the non-Malays. The British left them alone in the rural areas. British used the immigrant population to build the urban areas in the modern economy. So at independence, I think less than 5% of doctors, engineers, architects were Malays.
Right.
And most of them were non-Malays, like Indians. So many of them were doctors and all that.
Teachers
teachers and all that. So it was uneven. So I think the 153 was enacted because of that uneven development of different parts, not because you are Malay and it's your birthright. And even when you catch up, also you still must get a rent. I don't think that was the idea. But then later on, that was kind of some people talk about it, because all is racial politics. So even among Malay politicians, who is the champion? The fellow who puts forward more demands, higher demands, escalate the whole thing. And similarly on the non-Malay side as well, is it? So racial politicking brings up these new things, But I think overall, if you look at the constitution, it's quite fair.
You think so?
Oh, I think so. Because it says, okay, Malay is national language, but other languages, you have your right to have your own schools.
Yeah, your own religion, your
to
own schools, your own...
educate your children in your own language, develop your own language. I mean, compare it to, say, Indonesia.
Yeah, where it's very hard.
Or Thailand.
Yeah, they're going to make your name
You
all...
assimilate.
Yeah.
Assimilate by force. You see, like Thailand, look at them. Okay, leave alone the Chinese who went there. How about the Patani fellas in southern Thailand? They forced them to speak Thai.
Yeah.
You go to Patani, you can see even
Thai
everything is signboards are all Thai, and you don't even give a space for them, and that's why you have a problem there. Is it? So compared to Patani, Thailand, to Indonesia, Burma, the majority guys have been having troubles with the Chin and Kachans and the Rohingya.
Yeah.
So taking by
violence, man.
But taking by those terms, Malaysia is really an oasis of
relatively okay lah, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, there are problems.
Sure.
And especially, I think the poorer non-Malays have been left out because
that's the thing.
Yeah, if you only recognize poverty as Malay,
you see,
then so it's unfair to the poorer. So I fully sympathize with that lah. I fully sympathize that we should work on that. We should also work on the fact that still up till now, the Malays are still disadvantaged economically compared with the Chinese community. That also is a fact.
Yep.
So you've got to take all these on and work, but without politicizing it ethnically, So I am more prepared to give Malaysia, more space,
For like, you
Give more
shouldn't
time
be too
to-
critical in a way. Like,
I think it's a difficult situation, I think the Malay ruling elite in UMNO did some things which were very good. I mean, like SOCSO, for example, they brought it in 1969.
Yeah.
I think it's a damn good law, Then when petroleum was found, they brought in the Petroleum Act.
Yeah.
And they said that all the petroleum found and to be found in this country belongs to Petronas. And you want to come and prospect, can. But if you find something, there's got to be a production sharing regime. So they kept the wealth in the country. We can argue, has Petronas wealth been used properly or not? But the idea of it, of keeping the wealth in the country,
Makes sense. Yeah.
makes sense. So some of these things these guys have done, the Alliance government and Barisan have done, are good things. Not everything is bad, but I think it can be better. And I think the ethnic politics is something which is bad. Barisan did it, and so did the opposition. So everyone played that, and that is the problem. We got to stop that one.
I know this. Do you want to ask something?
Yeah, no, I think so Dr. Jaya, I mean, if I were to try and understand the ideal political universe in which you envision via PSM's direction, it sounds as though, you want to help the underprivileged regardless of ethnic background, regardless whether you're Malay, Chinese, whatever, lah, right? If you're underprivileged, so be it. Let me come in to your aid. That from a fiscal perspective comes at a cost to help these underprivileged. One common pushback about socialism in general is the money must come from somewhere, and that predominantly comes from taxes. Are we then saying it is okay then to tax the middle class further to supplement that underprivileged gap? Is that what we're implying?
We would prefer to tax the really rich.
The really rich folks.
Yeah,
right.
The problem with that is our tax on the corporate class was about 40% of profits in the 1980s. Now it's down to 24%. And the reason is we are competing with Thailand and Vietnam and Singapore and Indonesia for foreign investment.
Right.
And World Bank told us, hey, look, be more Musra capitalists, Musra
Gotta be more
business.
talent retention also lah. If you tax too high also,
That's
a lot
right.
of
So people run. So what the PSM is saying is, if everyone reduces taxes, we are at 24%. Thailand is sitting about 20 or 19%. Singapore is 17%.
Yeah.
So we are collectively cutting our throats because we all need money for climate mitigation. We all need money for social protection of our P40s in all our societies. So we reduce taxes and government revenue as a percentage of GDP falls.
Yeah.
So we can also, what we're saying is, we should now talk with other ASEAN countries and say, hey, shall we stop this, cutting of corporate tax to get foreign? We fight in other ways lah.
Okay, I
But
see your
don't do
point.
this.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry, can you just reiterate that again? Sorry, can you just reiterate? So you want to speak to other ASEAN
countries, especially I think we got to talk to the countries that really matter to us would be Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia.
Okay.
Because Singapore gets different kind of people going in. They're not competing with us. And Cambodia and Laos are, Brunei are not that big,
Yeah.
So these are the important five, who are getting the same kind of low cost manufacturing.
Yeah.
So we say that why don't we stop this race to the bottom together? So now first we come out agreement. We all just freeze our corporate taxes where they are. Don't go any further, attempt to pull in FDI. You want to pull in FDI, you do other things.
Sure.
Better infrastructure, you give better training, and all that, so you try and do that. But you don't cut down corporate tax. So that's the first step. Then if that works, then the next step would be, shall we over 10 years all bring our corporate tax back to 30%,
30%,
or
40%.
35% or whatever.
Oh.
So that means, let's say 10 years, so it could go up by 1/10 the gap. So let's say if Thailand is 20%, you want to go to 35%. Okay, every year must go up 1.5. We are 24 already.
Yeah.
You want to go to 35%, 11. So every year we go up by 1.1%. So that means we don't lose comparative advantage as we go up.
Because we all go together.
Oh. And then we also must tell the businesses, look, when we do this, when we tax you more, that money is going to be spent in the economy. It's going to widen the aggregate demand,
Yeah.
Eventually,
and
people
eventually there'll be more business for you.
and more talent as well.
There's more talent, there's its own market.
Yeah.
It's good for business because businessmen have got to sell. And if our market builds up,
You have a stronger purchasing market too.
that's right. And you're not so reliant on European market and US market. So, it's got some good things for the business class as well.
Yep.
And we got to pay more, but I think business won't mind paying more if everyone pays more. See, let's say if I am paying more, but you are not, then I won't like it,
Yeah.
But if everyone is, you all got to
Slowly.
pay more, I think it can be done. So something that we can discuss and do. That's what we've been pushing the government. So yes, we want more taxes, but I think doing it unilaterally may have a side effect on us.
Got you.
You may have, So I think this is the kind of things that socialists have got now think, got to be smart. And
It
you
can't
got
be
to
too
think-
radical and like overnight, I just
can't-
tax the rich,
Yeah,
that
no,
type of thing.
you can't think of it as a hate of the business class.
Yeah,
Cannot.
yeah.
You want the business class. They're doing a useful thing. The retail trade is very important to get goods and services to people.
Yeah, definitely.
If you're doing
And
a good-
competition is still good, like
Efficiency. So I think the benefits of it. So I think you should see also, let's say if Malaysia wants to become more self-reliant in, say, food production, medicine production, you want the business people to look into those kind of fields. I mean, where are you going to get your, your technical thing and, business acumen? So these are things we need to leverage to build the company's production. So I think the socialists of the 21st century have got to see the business class also as an ally.
Yeah.
But then you don't pollute the environment.
Yeah,
you don't bully your workers.
You got abuse.
So we must have laws. But as long as you follow those laws, you have a right to exist. So I think that's the line we got to take. And China is doing that, is it?
Yeah. They have that mixture, but they have so much resources. And,
You can't compare with China. China is huge.
Yeah,
it's a continent by itself in a way.
Yeah.
They've got a huge internal markets. They don't give a damn for anything else, really. They can survive. We cannot,
We need to be collaborative.
Yeah, but maybe we can talk of ASEAN, ASEAN as a whole has got about, 700 million people?
That's right.
So if you accumulate all together, it's almost to China actually.
Almost, a little bit less,
that's
but
half.
yeah,
It's
but
half a
yeah, but still that's big enough,
Yeah, it's pretty big.
bigger than Europe. I mean, as big as Europe.
Yeah,
bigger than
yeah,
Europe,
yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
So then if these people are getting a better salary, there's more government expenditure, then the domestic market in ASEAN is fairly good for ASEAN businesses. You're no longer now competing for the European market and the Australian market and the American market because your own domestic market is pretty good.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of vision that we are thinking of.
I see.
The longer term.
I actually think that's a wonderful idea. So I'll preface it by saying that first. But one counter argument could be, yes, if we collaborate with the top 5 neighboring countries, that we need to pay attention to people who are focused on lower down the value chain manufacturing sort of countries. Fine. Let's say we collectively agree corporate taxes stay where they are. We collectively raise them over a 10-year period, whatever rate. Okay, fine. So that's good. That also gives an opportunity for countries outside of this sort of ASEAN bubble, right? To be more competitive. So the likes of China may take advantage of that. The likes of, I'm not sure if you mentioned India as part of it, but let's say India, right? They can take advantage of it by lowering their corporate taxes.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one potential risk. Again, falling back to the caveat that I still love the idea nonetheless. So that's, I think, one angle. Then the other angle, I think, is on businesses in the long term flourishing because there is
More market.
there's a larger market at play. I suppose from a corporate standpoint, it is now a trade-off that I have to make to say, okay, I'm going to sacrifice short-term profits or to reduce short-term revenue in the hopes that in the long run this will benefit me.
Hopefully.
That's the key word here, right? Because we are now
It is a promise,
we're benefiting the aggregate of ASEAN, which is great, and that I'm sure has some ramifications to me positively.
Yeah.
But there's no guarantee it's coming to me,
True.
especially if I am a non-essential service sort of business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think those are, I guess, my counter arguments. Again, going back to the preface, I still love the idea.
It's like a pseudo Europe, right? It's like a, you get to travel in between France and Spain, that type of thing, but it's Asia.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah.
But I think here is where I think Trump comes in useful because Trump is talking of tariffs.
Yeah.
Right.
So we can say that free trade per se is not the be all and end all. Free trade shouldn't make us food insecure. If because of free trade, it coming and dumping grain or coming and dumping vegetables, and our local farmers go bankrupt and they gulung tikar and they move out.
Yep.
That's not right. So we can see certain things like so like we can see even jobs. So we can say trade is important. But if you have a very low wage policy, you're exploiting your own workers, and then you're coming and doing things here, and if we allow you to come in like that, you're going to make our factories close down. Then we'll put the tariff on you.
Yep.
But if you raise your wages to be commensurate with ours, or not in commensurate, maybe a bit better, I mean, we can argue that.
Sure, we can argue the semantics of it. Yeah.
Then we can see, your tariffs won't be there. So we can use tariffs to make the world a fairer place. I mean, it's the things we got to talk. Like it's like a Bandung 2.
Like a what?
Bandung.
Like
1955. There was a big conference of independent Asian and African. They met in Indonesia under
in
Sukarno.
Bandung. Oh, okay.
Bandung.
Okay.
Nehru was there. Chow and Lai was there. This guy Nkrumah was there. Nasser from Egypt, and they talked about how we can build the third world. But
I see.
a lot of them got disposed after that.
Oh,
Sure.
so Bandung too. But hopefully no disposal, right?
I think the world has changed so much, Now I think, you look at the world and the way which people look at the US and the Ukraine war. Not everyone is getting on board the NATO and US bandwagon.
Yeah.
I was telling my wife, look, Anwar is in Moscow.
Guys in Moscow, yeah.
Drinking tea with
Putin.
Putin.
Making jokes.
And making jokes, yes.
Having second wife.
And then, so can you imagine that, that's unthinkable maybe 50 years ago. So it just shows that the power of the West, the prestige and the power of the West to control the rest of the world has come down. So I think now is a chance to kind of, because we are independent in some ways,
Yeah.
but we're not independent in many things. We're not independent to raise our taxes.
Yeah.
We're independent to raise our wages. We raise our wages, we lose investment, we lose jobs.
Yeah.
So how independent are you really? Your hands are tied. So these are and they're tied in very important ways. You can't do enough about climate change, mitigation. You don't have money.
Yeah. It's a big investment into
All those things, but we have the money. I mean, look at our GDP. It's grown about 24-fold in the last 50 years in real terms. So we have the wealth, but it's not being spent locally. A lot of it is going overseas to the MNCs.
it's foreign investment.
Yeah, for investments. So these are the issues that, and like you said, you can't do it overnight.
Sure.
But you got to understand these are the issues and address them, instead of saying, no, nothing can be done about it, let's carry on this, But we must look at how, we have calculated all the working people in Malaysia. That means the
office workers.
office workers, everyone, the farmers, the self-employed, about 95% of the people's income is only about 25% of the total GDP.
Only 25%.
Yes.
Wow, so a lot of hidden.
So then 16% goes to government.
Ah,
After taxes, 16% goes to government, but 25% goes to the working people. So about 60% goes to the owners of business,
So-
including those overseas lah.
Oh,
You know,
so a
I
lot of
see.
money is going out.
A lot of money is going out. So the thing is now, if ASEAN and even the third world, group of 77 get together and say, look, there's enough buying our raw materials cheap and selling your things expensive, using all these patent laws and collecting rent, cost of technology, equipment, medicines. You put on these laws and for 20 years, 30 years, you can sell them at horrendous prices. It's all going to stop, I mean, so it's got to be a third world thing. You can't be Malaysia doing it alone.
Correct. Has to be a collective.
Collective and part by part, little bit, slowly do as a team.
What do you think are the challenges that are preventing us from collaborating with the other countries? I'm pretty sure if the idea is so solid, right, when it comes to collaboration, right, what's the hesitance with the other?
I think one is a lot of our leaders and our planners in all these countries have gone and studied in America, in Harvard, and they've been brainwashed really. They see it in a particular way. And things like free trade, for example, is held up as the model, free trade, intellectual property rights, all these are taken as
The default
A cultural thing
as-
they pull from there.
the highest possible thing.
Yeah.
So we think trade is important, but not to the extent that it deprives you of food security or medicine security. So these are things that we got to look at. I think we look at the economy. What's the economy for? Economy ultimately has got to produce all the goods and services your people need. That's one. Secondly, it's got to produce the jobs so the people can get the money to buy the goods and services they need.
Yeah.
Two basic things. And maybe the third thing is you must get enough foreign exchange to buy the goods and services that you at this point cannot produce on your own.
Yeah, you need from outside.
You need from outside. So you got to export some things to get the foreign exchange to produce the things that you really cannot do on your own. This is what the economy should do. I mean, that's how we look at it.
Yeah.
Then work around. But like you said, we're not talking about something that can be done overnight, it's sudden, because we are in a situation, we must not make it worse for our people. Cause unemployment, capital flight.
Correct.
No, you can't do that. So you got to do it gradually. And you got to tell the local business class, look, we're not anti-you, we're not anti-capital, we're not anti-business. But you got to behave yourself, you can't pollute, you can't,
There's
bully your
a
workers.
certain
Yeah, but
criteria you gotta meet.
we see you are playing a good role. You must play that role, and we also see that small businesses are getting bullied by big businesses.
Yeah.
So we are going to try and stop that.
Or at least make it a bit more fair, I guess.
Well,
Right?
you can do it. See, like for example, you're working with lorry drivers, and you find a lot of lorry companies are small companies, 3 lorries, 5 lorries, and because of the competition among these companies, getting jobs, they try, and the margin is very thin.
Yeah.
So they cheat in the EPF.
Oh.
They cheat by overloading the lorries. They cheat by not really upkeeping the lorries as they try and stretch the tires as far.
Yeah.
And you get all these problems. And the problem is not the driver, it's not even the small businessman, because if I don't do it,
I can't.
my
put food on
margin
the
is
table.
I'll go under.
Yeah.
Because I bought a lorry, I got to pay for that lorry, I got repairs, I got to pay for stuff. So what we are saying is, maybe the government should come in and put minimums for loads. This much load for this distance, you can't go below that. If you go below that, they're going to fine you. So the factories, the big cement factories, so you put a minimum so that people do not go below that. Because once you go below that, something is going to give. Either you overload or you don't repair a lorry, or you
Something
cheat your
is going to be
staff.
cut lah.
Going to be cut lah. So these are kind of things that maybe we can bring in, is it? So even things like, supermarkets, supermarkets are killing off all the neighborhood grocery stores.
All the smaller pasar type of thing too.
So like some countries in Europe, they limit the supermarket opening time,
Oh.
You got to close at 7 p.m. or something like that.
Right.
So we can look at it and say, I don't know what exactly we can do here, but we can do that because you see, if we compare a supermarket with a mom and pop store,
Like a Kedai Runcit that sells eggs and all that.
Yeah. The Kedai Runcit that's locally owned, the profits are plowed back in that same place.
Yeah.
The Kedai Runcit in Sungai Siput, for example.
Yeah.
That man lives in that place. He earns his profit. His children go to the school there. They buy medicines. They buy clothes.
Yeah.
So the local market has got more depth.
Yeah.
And it becomes a supermarket. with his office in Singapore,
Yeah, the
then
money
where does
is...
the wealth go? The wealth just goes out, you see.
Yeah.
You're siphoning wealth out of the local economy.
Mm.
You know, so there are a lot of good things in having small is beautiful kind of thing. You know, so I think it's the kind of things we've got to look at last. You know, and especially now, you know, all these platforms are coming in, and people are selling on platform.
Yeah, like online platforms.
And then what happens is all the local guys who are selling the same thing are getting
Decimated.
yes. So
Because you get it from overseas or your money.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
Like you
it's
buy
same
from
thing.
China.
So same thing. The profits go there, and our local guys, you know, end up losing their business. You know, so these are things I think we got to look at. I mean, ultimately, if the economy is to provide the goods and services, and to provide the means for buying these goods and services, this is going to be your top thing, lah. Then what do you have to do? So I think we need to look at things in those ways, lah.
Yeah.
Which is not the way in which the conventional guys look at it, lah. They look at, you know, what making we must try investment
Yeah.
and all that.
But I think, do you think that's why Donald Trump did that whole tariff thing then? It's because he wanted the whole American market to somehow recover in a way that, you know, bring up their businesses again, because they were so dependent on other countries, right, when it comes to purchasing. You know, but at the same time, I think by doing that, you kind of like cut yourself off.
I think you got to be more measured.
Yeah. That one a bit too hardcore, lah, right? Yeah.
You know, you can't, you know, you give us the thing, then suddenly you draw it back for 90 days, then, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, up and down, you know, it's like, I think businesses need some stability to plan, lah.
Yeah.
You know, when you're like a madman doing left and right, you know, I mean, then people cannot plan. What? How can he make investments? So let me change his mind, you know, in 2 weeks' time. You know?
Yeah, day to day, actually. Remember the time they were competing with tariffs and all that, right, with China. Yeah.
So it's come back down again, but for a few months, don't know, we go up again. No, I think he's got some ideas there, I think, like, you know, but the way he's doing it, I think is like a gangster, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's crazy.
I think it's very. It comes off as childish of sorts. Very fickle-minded.
Yeah.
Lax
Like your decision you didn't really put any thought into it. It's like a reactive thing, you know.
Even if that was the intended plan from the get-go, I think optically, from the outside looking in, it comes off as fickle.
Yeah, it's like playing poker, you know. You're trying to outguess the guy,
Yeah.
intimidate the guy.
That's
you
right.
know.
That's right.
I think it's going to end up. It's going to end up with a recession.
Yeah.
Oh, is that?
I think so.
Mm.
You know, because okay, I mean, let's say for example, in America, if you have tariffs, you know, against all these countries, it means the prices of goods are going to go up in your country.
Yeah.
Right? Because not everything can be produced immediately.
Definitely not.
Yeah. So that means the same aggregate demand is going to buy less goods. Right? So that means there's less scope for production.
Yeah.
You know, so less production means people are going to lose jobs. Isn't it?
Yeah, then recession.
It's all a
So,
cycle.
and then people
Aiyo.
and people also are investors also scared to invest too much because this guy is
Yeah, here and there.
dropping. Yeah. So I think there's a big risk of having a recession, and it'll affect everyone lah. If they go into recession, the whole
It's a ripple
world.
effect.
Yeah, ripple effect. And so I think that is a possibility that you got to look out for.
Oh my lord lah.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Aiyo.
Yeah, I agree with the train of thought here. Certainly not something we should discount. No one can tell the future, right? No one can predict the markets, but seems like a pretty good chance. Yeah.
That's so depressing, man.
but I think there is a silver lining in that he's challenging a lot of the things that need to be challenged. You know, that trade at all costs is a good thing. You know, that all these free trade agreements that you've signed on are perfect. They're not. In fact, they put us under the power of the largest multinationals.
Yeah.
So by questioning these kind of things, the issues like that I'm trying to bring up, that, you know, what's the purpose of an economy?
Yep.
And bring up those kind of arguments.
Because I think they forget, right? I think people forget what's the purpose of the economy really.
Yeah.
They're just seeking like that growth.
GDP must grow.
Yeah.
The stock market must grow up. You know.
Yeah.
So you look at those kind of
Consistently
things.
every year. Like, wow,
But you can have GDP growth like in Malaysia, but still there's 20%, 21% of our under fives are stunted, according to UNICEF survey.
Oh wow.
Under 5, sorry, say that again.
21% of the under five in our country are less than the third percentile for their age, which means that's chronic malnutrition.
Wow.
Can you imagine? We are supposed to be nearly advanced stage, right?
Yeah.
But 1/5 of the children under the age of 5
I'm malnourished.
are malnourished chronically.
1 out of 5.
1 out of 5.
21%.
21%. Yeah. This is statistics from the Ministry of Health quoting UNICEF studies. So that means, I mean, look at it. Our minimum wage is
wild.
1,007, right?
Yeah.
But Bank Negara has said that you need, I think, 4,006 for a single person in KL.
KL, yeah.
And something like 6,005 if you're a family with 2 children.
Yeah.
1,007, and that.
Yeah,
So
make it make sense.
Yeah, we're not paying our people enough. We're not paying, if you look at the wages in, say, Bayan Lepas for people working in electronic factories,
Yeah.
they're being paid maybe about 1/5 or 1/8
No kidding.
of what the workers in California would get for the same work using the same technology,
1/5.
or even worse.
Actually, 1/5 sounds about right, lah. Because technically, if you convert to US dollars, it's about there, right? It's
If you-
quote and unquote minimum there, right? But
If you take minimum say about $12 an hour,
yeah.
so 12 times 8 is 96 times 4. Then you can't calculate it out. It's almost about 10,000. It's your minimum wage in the US.
Wow, that's even more actually. That's more
10,
ratio.
11,000,
yeah.
But here's 1,007
Yeah, that's like
times 6 lah.
yeah.
So I think we are underpaying our workers. That's why you have this 1/5.
Yeah.
This problem. So I think this is something we cannot allow too much lah.
We literally had the podcast about this last night about how the ex BNM I forgot it. What was the guy? Is it ex BNM? I think so, right? He's the guy with the white hair. I forgot what his position. Yeah, but he was saying how the minimum fresh grad salary should be 5 to 6K.
Sounds about 2, isn't it? 2 or something.
Yeah, thereabouts 3-ish lah, 2.5 to 3. And I'm like thinking, actually, where does the money come from? Like if you want to pay 5 to 6 for a fresh grad, I think that would really destroy them a lot of SMEs also, man.
I think this kind of thing cannot be done overnight.
It's a gradual.
But I mean, I told you the statistic, right? Of our whole GDP, only 25% goes to the people who are producing the wealth.
You need to reallocate.
And
the
16% goes to government. So 59% is going to owners of capital in the country and outside the country. The question is, how can you take a bit of that
then channel it to
and channel it to the people, or channel it to the government? And if the government can do, say, like old age pension, is something that we are trying to push for. Old age poverty is a huge problem in Malaysia.
Oh, is it?
Oh yeah, man.
Huh.
I mean, above the age of 70, I think less than 25% of the people above 70 have some definite income. The pensioners are okay.
Pensioners definitely because they are government. But I heard that one also.
Get something, And the people who have property lah. They got a second house, or they can rent out, or they got shares, But the remainder of them are relying on their children.
Oh wow, that's
Isn't
their retirement plan.
It's not a plan lah, it's by default. It's by default, And then children also are getting this lousy wages. And they have their own children to look after.
They're
and
the sandwich generation.
And then the cost of living is so high in KL. Rental is crazy,
It's so strange. I feel like we are actually on track to being very similar to Japan, Korea, China now. I just came back. So this year, I had the privilege of going to China, Korea, and Japan.
You're a lucky guy.
All for work, right? But all three I can see, because when I work with people there, I can see the struggles that they go through. Very similar. They have aging parents, salary is not high enough, and they are starting a family. Was so difficult, man.
Then why you wonder why is the fertility rate going down? Of course lah, you have a child, then you got to now with all the education and all that.
Yep.
I mean, economically now it's difficult to have a child, isn't it?
So it's almost unthinkable for most, I think.
It's a privilege to have a kid now. It's like it's basically flexing a Continental car. Right? You're having a kid is having a Conti car, at this point. And then you have 2 kids some more. I'm like, wow.
2 cars.
Yeah, 2 cars. Maintenance is higher some more. But I think I've seen that trend, and I think over here we are going on track to there now.
See, but the problem is not the economy. I told you earlier, our GDP has grown 24-fold in the last 50 years. It's not a problem that the country is not producing the wealth. It is. But the wealth, how is the wealth being distributed?
Yes, that's what the issue is.
That's the issue that we got to talk about. And how do you set that right without upsetting the apple cart? Without running, making businesses run away, or making them bankrupt,
It's finding that.
Yeah. So we got to do it, gradually, in steps. And we got to tell the business community, look, we are not seeing you as the enemy. We're more seeing the multinationals, the global billionaires. That's the main enemy. Because they see the guy who is producing for the multinational and selling it. He's being bullied as well. The factory owner in, say, Penang, who's producing some component. The company is giving him some of the technology, some of the machines, but he's selling that product back to the company. And he's probably getting,
a fraction
of the cost of that product if it be produced in America.
Yeah.
A tenth.
It's the whole iPhone thing produced in China, then sell to the rest of the
That's
world.
right. But so cheap, what they're producing here is, so much less than what they'll pay for American production.
Yeah.
But this guy talks up and says, no, you better pay me more. They'll switch to a factory in Thailand or Vietnam.
Yeah.
So we don't see this guy as the source of all that problem. You're part of the whole machinery. Of course, you're making a profit.
Yeah.
But we don't see you as the main problem. So that's how we look at it, is it?
Well, but it'd be quite tough, right? Because if you were to have that initial idea of like linking up together with the somewhat neighboring, bordering countries, Thailand, all that, easily a lot of investors can just say, oh, you know what? They've become their pseudo Europe. Why not we just find other countries to go and do work then? So it could be driving the entire thing.
Could be.
You know what I mean?
See, like in China, they also cannot say that because now China has become the biggest market for many of their like cars,
Production,
for example.
yeah.
Right.
If they lose the China market, it will affect them as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they lose
Oh,
the
because
ASEAN.
we're nearby, right? Yeah, in a way.
And
yeah.
we're ASEAN. And if you lose the ASEAN market, is also big.
Oh, that's true.
Fair enough.
Oh, because collectively we are a market too.
Yeah,
I
for
see,
them.
I see.
Yeah. So I think we got to think this through,
Yeah.
Think this through, put some good economic brains, and think it through and see how do we structure it, how do we face it in step by step. And also instigate Africa to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Africa, you look and see what's happening in the Sahel.
Sorry, where?
Sahel,
Sahel.
Mali, Niger,
Yeah.
Burkina Faso. You must see the TikTok, what?
I haven't.
You haven't seen?
No.
I gotta say, man, you are up to date, man. You're on TikTok too.
I'm on TikTok, yeah.
Damn,
I'm
man.
addicted.
Not even I'm on TikTok.
Okay.
We get a lot of stuff on it, But now in Africa, there's a kind of fight back, push back and saying, why are we so poor? We're a rich continent and we're so poor. We should, So so like in Niger, they've kicked the French out of their uranium mines.
Wow.
In Burkina Faso, they kicked them out of the gold mines. And they're saying we're going to use the wealth for our own people. They've kicked out all foreign troops from these countries, American and French. You must follow up and see.
Wow.
So there is some thinking going around there as well in Africa now,
So interesting.
Do you feel, Dr. Jaya, that there is one small piece of this whole puzzle is the fact that you have educated young uns today who are incentivized to think about these issues. As you said, right, these are not issues to resolve overnight. They take years, if not decades, to properly resolve. The younger generation, there needs to be a sufficient pool of talent to leverage on for this to go through, to follow through with this whole thing in the long term. But these guys are not incentivized, right? These guys, when they come out of their fancy colleges and they're very bright and talented people, the best of the best, the cream of the crop, they get incentivized to go to McKinsey,
Yeah.
right? They get incentivized to
Why
go-
help the country? It's not exactly gonna.
But how many of them can be employed by these MNCs? How many of them can go into that? True. I mean, if you want to get a high 5-figure salary, 50,000, 70,000 a month, then you got to work for an MNC or some, some big investment company, billionaires. If you want to work in an NGO and help, rural development or orang asli, maybe you get a mid 4-figure,
Yeah,
5,000,
man.
6,000. You won't starve though,
That's
And
true.
So what's is important is what you want to do.
Yeah.
So I think the educated people in not only Malaysia but also all over ASEAN and the whole third world have got to see, okay, now it's about 60, 70 years since these countries came out of colonialism. We're not completely out. Well, look at Malaysia. Our ethnic
Traces,
issues, not traces. I think the divisions are still so huge.
You think so?
Oh yeah, ethnic
Or maybe I'm living my
divisions.
bubble lah.
Ethnic divisions are so huge, and the way in which we are voting, Malays all
Oh, that's
voting one
true.
side,
Pass and everything.
and then the Chinese and Indians voting another side. We're not talking to each other properly. How often do you go and eat with a Malay friend or they eat with us? We're very divided. So that's one problem, and we haven't got our economic freedom to do what we want to do. We can't raise wages, for example. We're scared we lose. So we are so stuck in the whole system. So we do need young people to come and see how can we do this. Now, what's the next phase after getting political independence? How to use this independence to build a better society for all of us. And we need the skills and the knowledge and the drive from young people, But now many young people are thinking of what is success. Success is getting your Mercedes or your BMW.
Material wealth.
And your $1 million before the age of 35, So you got to define what is success. Is success, living enough for yourself, make sure you have enough to eat and, your children and you can have a family. But then to help your people, your society, your civilization, re-establish yourself in the world after 500 years of colonial bullying, to re-establish ourselves, which part of the old, not all the old is good. There's a lot of feudal things which are bad, but some of the good things, then the technology and the knowledge, how do you build?
Implement into developing.
So if you can get people to have that vision that they had in Bandung. In Bandung in 1955, they had that. But they didn't have the wealth, they didn't have the technology or the education.
God lah, actually, like I know, because I do events full time. I work with it's a family business just across the street. Okay, so that's why we have the cameras and everything, right? And when I work with my clients, so I work with UN and UNICEF, and you can tell actually a lot of them are from law background and all that. And then they decide I had enough of this lah. And then they go and join the NGOs and everything, and then they really channel their energy into it. Like talking about social behavior. They talk about like child protection online protection. A lot of them decide in their 30s, funnily enough, they're like, you know what, screw it lah. I'm not going to do this rat race, earn 5-figure, and then I want to leave a mark. So they do join. There are people, it's just not a lot lah. Slowly lah.
From your view, Dr. J, and your experience in politics and throughout your career, do you feel there is a sufficient pool of talent coming from sort of a younger generation inspired to make a change from a societal perspective as opposed to a capitalistic perspective? Is there a sufficient talent pool?
No, not enough. There's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah,
a lot of work to be done. There are people, but I think now still the definition of success is still materialistic. What car, what house.
It's easier, man, because that's what you see on TikTok, right? You don't see like I managed to help this family. It's not as nice as Lambo. You know what I mean?
No, but you go to TikTok, you can see, like this guy, in Burkina Faso, Traoré, Captain Traoré, he through the old regime and the things that he's doing, There's a guy called Patrice Lumumba who's a professor in somewhere and is talking about. So there are people talking about it. So it is there.
But it's not.
We need more people. We need more people. And we need a new culture. People to say it's not so important to have, a fancy car, or a fancy house, or a house with a swimming pool. You don't need those things. You can need a house, but any car. Even my Vios gets me from here to Ipoh. And so what's the
second-hand
problem?
Vios.
Not only that, it's given to me.
Yeah.
My uncle gave it to me. When he stopped driving, he just passed it to me. So not even bought.
Funny enough, my sense is because wages are generally pretty bad in Malaysia, getting to a point of wealth where you can confidently raise a family of 2 and to have a house and whatnot becomes so distant. I think the likelihood of the younger generation, especially your Gen Alphas of the world, who are definitely going to struggle from a wage perspective in the short term, they're more incentivized to seek success elsewhere.
Because it's faster, it's nearer.
And to achieve the $1 million status in real terms, because at that point it'll be 10 million, right? Sorry. That's going to be so far-fetched that I'm more incentivized to look at something that's more achievable. And perhaps that means helping society. Perhaps that means clearing the trash in some sungai.
Oh, is
right?
it?
Perhaps that means something else, right? To derive that sense of success and purpose. So ironically, I feel the issues that we're facing are going to incentivize the young generation to go to lean a little bit more that way.
Really?
I think so.
Oh,
it's almost like if a goal is
Too difficult to achieve.
too difficult. You're not even going to try, right? Or at least of 100% of people, a larger proportion will not try at all, and everyone seeks some sort of purpose, some sort of goal. Yeah, so they need to channel that elsewhere. So I think there's going to be some upside, at least from a societal perspective.
Hopefully.
Ironically,
But just
we need
the,
people.
yeah, but I think there's just less people because of the generation that's supposed to produce that generation. You know what I mean? It's
Stop
like
producing.
right now, it's like we're like, wow, do I really want to have a kid? You know, it's so difficult to make sure that this kid is a great product of society and can contribute back. You know, that's the thing.
You know, one thing that will go against what you are saying is the fact that now education, you end up with a debt already.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The moment you
that's true.
graduate, you have what, 80,000, 100. If you're a doctor, if you did medicine,
You're $500,000 in.
it's like, 500,000.
Yeah.
So it's a bit difficult to kind of, so you're tied in that way. And it's not like, it's like your father might have put the money up, and then you got to think of the younger people in the family that you also got to quickly work and help the next guy, you know. So that may tie people down a bit.
Yeah, that's true. You're not starting from zero more often than not. You're
You're
starting
starting
at a
negative, negative, couple of 100,000, you know.
But
So-
I have seen this, I think it's like 60 minutes video. I also mentioned this last night about how a lot of Americans are going through that whole student debt type of thing. And they realize this. So the newest generation just forgoes college and university and goes into apprenticeship.
I've heard that.
Yeah. They just straight away go into woodwork, welding. And it's,
Actually, that's why PSM, we believe that there should be free education up to your first degree.
I think that's perfect.
You know why? Because let's say I give you education. I mean, society gives you education. You become a science graduate. I say, okay, look, Jonathan, you go and teach in a rural area.
Wow.
You should do it because, I mean,
I
society
already
has
gave
trained you.
Yeah.
Whereas if I make you pay $100,000,
I'm
Then-
going to be a ruthless guy that goes to join an MNC, man.
true. I mean, why should you? I've got no moral right to tell you
Yeah.
go and work in Sarawak with the natives because they are poor.
Yeah.
I didn't give you money. I made money out of you.
Yeah.
Your education. Similarly for doctors or nurses, if we as a society, we need these people, we train them, and then inculcate in them, look, you got to give back. Of course, we give you a decent pay and all that, but you should give back.
I think that's what happened
Earlier,
and then we just lost that, right? Like,
too commercialized.
yeah, we were just talking to, he was a Buddhist speaker. His name is Dr. Vijaya. He's an ex-lecturer in Taylor's. A fantastic person to speak to, very inspiring. And he said also, I was sponsored by the government to teach, and in the end, I had to teach in rural areas. And then he found a passion for it, taught in Kelantan and type of thing. And then I was thinking to myself, well, actually, if I was sponsored by the government and then I in the end was told to, you need to go and help a community, no comms. I'm like, you know what? You made you gave me an education. Least I can do is give you another 2 years of my life to give back. Even if you don't, right? You feel some form of guilt if you don't, right? Or if you can't, or you have a better opportunity, you can pay your way what the government has already offered you. I think the whole system is so morosot already, because you feel like you need to pay more to get a better education, quote unquote, and then that kind of puts you in this trap.
That's right.
Yeah, then you just stuck.
Then after that, you get married, then you got to buy a house, then that puts you in another trap.
Yeah,
it's a perpetual cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're forever just in this.
And by the almost paying that up, you get some sickness. And then
Then you pay for your hospital bills.
Yeah.
It's
end
so
up-
brutal.
you end up, in debt throughout your life.
Yeah.
This is for the middle class,
Yeah, the middle income trap lah. We all kena all this lah.
Has PSM, out of genuine curiosity, because I'm unfortunately a corporate slave. So
Okay.
when we make sort of a directional decision from a business perspective, we calculate the financials to see if that decision makes sense. Now, sort of echoing that train of thought, put into the context of PSM's sort of narrative of everyone deserves an education up to the first degree. Has PSM mapped out how much that would cost the country financially to see if fiscally does that make sense? Can we even afford to do that? Or is this a sort of lofty ambition where we want to achieve it at some point in time, but we cannot financially today?
I think it's something you got to face it in now, because you got to also consider what you're going to do with the 43 billion debt people owe to PTPTN. Because the people already taken, and see, PTPTN actually has floated bonds, right? It's
Yep.
money They've got bonds and they use those bonds to give loans. So they've got to pay back those bonds as they mature. So they've got to collect the money back. If they don't pay back those bonds, the government has got to, as a guarantor, has got to pay it back. So there's a huge sum of money there. And so now if you make it completely free from now on, those guys say, hey,
what about
why should I pay? You know.
Yep.
So once you set a thing into motion, but okay, let's calculate it out. About our each cohort is about 450,000 people now, one age group.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, if you look at SPM or SRP, people sitting
Every
about,
year lah.
about 450,000 sit for that. About half of them now go into college.
Only half.
About half. So
Wow.
let's say you take 200,000 per year,
Oh,
times it by
man.
say 4 years,
Sure.
800,000
Yep.
people are in college. So what's the price of college? Let's say, but then again, if you go into a commercial college, prices are high. You know,
Yeah.
it's done by government.
It's a lot
It'll be
more affordable.
cheaper. So then you got to calculate. Okay, let's say roughly 800,000.
Sure.
You know, and what's the average college rate? And then again, technical ones are more expensive.
Yep.
Medicine, engineering.
You gotta find general.
Say an average number, lah, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I think you can calculate that out quite
Yeah.
easily. I think people are talking about 10, 15 billion.
Mm.
But then must be by government. Then the question is, what do you do with all these private colleges,
Yep.
which have
That's
got
true.
investment and all that? So government has got to think of, if they go bankrupt, we take it over lah. If people are going more to government and not going to these colleges and they're going bankrupt, we take it over and then we can use it as our campuses.
That's right. That's right.
So you've got to work it out how it can be done. But it can't be done commercially. If it's done as a commercial thing, it'll be too expensive, no?
And the prices only go up.
Yes.
They never go down.
Yeah.
That's
so,
the thing.
So if you want to do this free education, it's got to be publicly.
Yes.
Maybe
of
not.
course.
Maybe not by government. Maybe by, like we're talking about. You don't want the government to get too powerful.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have trusts, educational trusts,
Ah.
which are non-profit. The government funds it, but then the management is separate from government. And you can think of a way of getting people there elected or what. So the trust, they handle education, tertiary education.
And it can be circular lah. In the end, after that, fella goes and study for X number amount, and then he just needs to serve that amount also. In the end, you get that cycled payback. You know what I mean?
Get that.
But you need to start lah. If you don't, then
But then the
it
other
just
thing,
gets worse lah.
then the other thing is whether you need to go for 4 years. Because sometimes you look at some of the courses, you really wonder whether they need 4 years.
You don't really need 4 years.
So a lot of it is just bullshit kind of courses, right?
Yeah.
Just to kind of pack it in,
Make
pack it up.
you feel like the 4 years is necessary,
that's right.
Yeah.
I think many things you can actually study it outside and just go for board exams,
Yeah.
technical skills and all that. So we can simplify education that way.
Right. That makes
You know?
sense. That makes sense.
So we can think it through as well. Not
Got you,
all
got you.
not all these 800,000 are doing varied things. It's
Yeah.
doing some bullshit things that
Yeah.
are not necessary.
You can trim the fat one. Definitely. I was also talking to the guys last night. We did a recording last night about AI. And a lot about how students are utilizing AI in their assignments. Right? So if you think about it, is it a bad thing or a good thing? That one's up to debate lah, right? We had the internet too lah. Okay? So a bit easier also on our side. But if you think about it, AI just basically eliminates the first layer of thinking. Now, what if we developed the education system beyond that first level of thinking to a third or fourth or maybe even fifth level where you needed to go through the first and second tier of thinking in order to, you need to solve first and second with AI. It's applied knowledge that you have, but to solve things that are real life. Like how much of what we study in universities and colleges have been applied in our day-to-day jobs. It's like almost insignificant what I've learned, and I've applied. So if we can get through that first and second level of thinking via AI, you have already propelled the student into a third tier thinking.
But the
That is-
student must also have that
The basic-
capacity
yeah.
to do that work without AI.
Oh, for sure. Like the
Otherwise-
foundation has to be there.
Yeah. Otherwise,
right?
then I've come across some reports where AI has fooled the lawyers.
Ah.
The lawyers do research of cases, and the AI actually hallucinates. It gives them
False info.
case notes, false case accounts.
Oh, wow.
And then when they put it in their pleadings, then the judge goes and checks, they can't find it.
Oh, shoot.
And it's reprimanded the lawyer. Say, what
Oh,
is this?
shit.
So-
The guy didn't do proper homework.
Give
Wait.
AI, but AI sometimes they call it hallucination.
Yeah, actually, I've received that. That was a point I brought up as well, But it only gets better, for sure, because it's a learning model, right?
But he's saying it's about like 10%, when it comes out as hallucination.
It's quite high, actually.
Yeah.
But I think it gets better, right? So before this,
Okay.
it was very bad. Like, I know I'm reusing this same example, right? I support Man United, the football team. And then when I researched about the manager, it gave me wrong information because the manager swapped. There's a new manager now. And I'm like, you got the information wrong, lah. Luckily enough, I spotted that, lah, right? And then in the end, they were like, oh, my apologies. And I'm like, wow, this guy gave me wrong information, lah. My God. So I think it's not like it should be completely like, oh, don't use it. But I think you should also have the self-checking. So for example, if you use AI, let's say you use ChatGPT, you find the facts, you just have to cross-check. Just go on Google or something, cross-check with another 2 more sources. Okay, that's the correct. Then you go next step. So I think with education, going back to our conversation about how kids can be sponsored by the government and all that, I think the education does not necessarily have to be so long. It can be like a year and a half, actually. Like when I graduated also from the States, I compressed my degree from 4 years to 3 because I did summer classes and everything. And if I eliminated those useless classes, I think I could have been done in 2 lah. Right, let's be real. You know what I mean?
I think it could be done in 1, to be honest.
Yeah.
If you really tried hard enough,
Yeah,
you can.
yeah, because
but I think, the campus life is something else,
Oh, for sure.
So, so you need young people to come together. So there's another kind of atmosphere and people
Social
networking,
learning.
socializing and learning,
We can have more room for that
Yeah.
instead of being like in class.
Yeah. So I think whether it can be learning online for many things, and then some things come together.
Yeah.
So you can make it cheaper in that way,
Yeah.
And, learning through AI as well,
Yeah. It's definitely possible. It's definitely
so we can work out a system, because now it's expensive because there are all these commercial interests, so making money out of it,
Yeah.
because people also take PT and pass it to them, and so I think it's in some ways it's a bit of a racket, you see.
Yeah.
So if you do it properly, it won't cost as much as it's costing now, and maybe the government can absorb it. You see.
Yeah.
So-
Which country do you know of practices such a good balance of socialism and capitalism, or any other isms for that matter, that is very, very harmonious to you? Like, which country do you see, practices this?
I think in Europe, we have a number of countries, Scandinavian countries, for example, which were, Canada
Yeah.
to some extent, So, but the thing is, you must remember that those societies came up because of a particular historical conjecture,
They weren't exactly colonized.
They weren't colonized. That's one thing. You see, Karl Marx actually believed the revolution will start in England or Germany or America. Because for his thinking, it is the working class who first understand the contradiction, that they're working so hard, they're producing so much, getting so little. So they will band together and kick the capitalists out. And he said that will probably come where the working class are large in number, make a large portion of society.
Yeah.
In some way, he called them the grave diggers of capitalism. Okay, so he really thought it'll happen in Britain or maybe in America. But what happened was the capitalist countries managed to colonize the third world.
Yeah.
And they got so much of surplus from here,
Resources.
wealth.
Yeah.
So they were able to give what the workers were asking for. you see.
Oh.
The 8-hour day. After that, you get 4 hours. You get after that you get overtime, extra pay, 1 day of rest. Stop working children. All those laws came in. Sick leave, and the wages went up. You see. So, and the other thing is they gave political rights as well, the right to vote. I think in 1800s, very few countries you could vote. Even in Britain, I think you had to be a property owner.
Wow.
Yeah, you check and see.
You had to be a
You had to be a property owner
to vote.
Yes.
What in the world?
That was the world at the time.
That is crazy. So you're saying right now people don't even want to vote? That time you can't even vote
can't
if you don't
vote.
have a home?
Yeah. You don't have property, you don't vote. I think only in the 1800s it came. In Britain, only in 1920s, women who had property could vote.
Talk about progress.
Yeah, so we had a lot of progress.
That's progress.
We made progress. So these are the concessions given by the elite then to stave off what Marx prophesies is going to happen.
It's how you keep things in control.
In control.
Oh wow, that's wild, man.
So you got to look at what's happening in Scandinavia, the high wages and all that. They're part of the whole European thing. So they're part of that. What happened is in Australia, same thing. The wages are good compared to our wages. But that's historically because they were being pressured by the working class movements. They had very powerful unions, huge powerful unions, and they compromised. And then many of those unions then formed social democratic parties, labor parties. Then they brought in the welfare state. They brought in free education. They had free healthcare. They had unemployment benefits. They had council housing.
Right.
They created all these socialistic things. The
structure.
Structures. And so the working class said, okay, why go for revolution? I'm getting it already. Right?
You're getting great stuff. Yeah. Oh.
But then what has happened now is when you have the collapse of the Soviet Union and there's no more communist bear to worry about, in all these countries, taxes have come down because you don't bring taxes down, they keep running away to the tax havens. They're outsourcing their production to China and all that.
I see, because it's too expensive.
Yes. So the powerful unions now have not lost in a direct confrontation. They've been undermined. They lost their workers.
Yeah.
So that's why now you have in the West, the working class in the West has been in a way shafted by the new economic system that allows capital to move so liberally and take its profits and go put it in Cayman Islands or some Bahamas and don't pay taxes. And then so you're forced to do austerity. Then you're forced to increase the pension ages. Like in France, they have a striking about that, right?
Yeah.
From
For
65,
perpetually that one.
because you're giving, what you'd given at a previous time to prevent them from revolting, now you're drawing it back.
Yeah.
You're drawing back the privileges. In Britain last time was free education, going to universities. Now they're giving you loans. There was previously, healthcare was good. Now there's a lot of waiting times and all that.
Yeah.
So what was given at an earlier period now is being progressively drawn back because the government doesn't have the finances.
Yep.
Because their rich are also keeping their money in Cayman Islands and all that.
They don't want to pay the taxes, man.
Don't pay the taxes. So you look at the distribution of wealth in the world, even globally, the richest, 500 people or 1,000 people are getting so bloody rich.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, you can see, what Oxfam comes out with this kind of figures, statistics. So that's part of what's happening, and that's part of the reason why in the Europe and America you're getting a backlash.
Yeah.
The former workers who are now underemployed or contractually employed, and
no wonder the disparity is so much now.
And so much resentment to the system.
Yeah.
So that's how. So you got to tie in Sweden and all that, how it came in, and then now how it actually is being, even in Sweden, it's being drawn back.
Is it?
So around the world, if we do not say, how do we make sure that the richest guys pay their fair share of the taxes? Because ultimately, then they're also creating a society, which is this dystopian.
Yeah.
And they got to live in that as well.
But they don't see that. It's like that whole that building in India, I forgot. It's like this extremely multi-million-dollar building in the slums of India.
Adani, Bombay, he's built this.
It's very polarizing when we
that is literally that, because my mom recently went to New York for work as well, and she saw how bad it became. She's like, I tell you luckily you all didn't stay there. Yeah, then I was like, so bad. And when I went there, I think it was 2018, so it's pre-COVID. All the Best Buys are closed. There's no more Best Buy. Best Buy, it's like a store that sells electronics.
Cheaper, is it?
Sort of, kinda. It's like they price match. So if you find stuff online, you can go there and you're like, I saw a PlayStation 4 for X number of dollars. So they'll match you, right?
Oh, like that.
Yeah. So now there are no Best Buys in San Francisco. It's crazy,
Why they none?
Because everybody can buy it online. And then it just gets worse and worse. So now less jobs, right? Streets. So, every popular city always has a market street. Shopping is like abundant, like people are walking around. In SF right now, there's no mall like on the market street itself. I was like, wow, that's crazy, man. It's just because more and more poor people are just on the streets now. And I was thinking like, wow, cannot be that bad, right? But when you say how the wealth is so distributed to the ultra wealthy,
Well distributed,
you will definitely see more poverty.
True.
Money is going somewhere. It's not to the people. It's definitely to one guy out there who's funneling somewhere else.
But that's the problem. You do that. How much of that can he consume?
Yeah.
So we can't consume. The poor don't have money to consume. What's happening to your market?
It's just
You need
stagnant.
market to for businesses to produce and sell too. So
Yeah.
actually, this maldistribution of wealth is bad for the capitalist system itself.
ultimately, it's going to bite them back in the ass
Yeah.
because you don't have a market to.
Yeah. So actually, this is an argument we can give to our business class here. Say, look, we're going to build the market for you. We're going to insist on better pay, really increase the pay for everyone, increase government taxes, so government procurements will go up. We're going to do projects to rehabilitate the environment. So all that's going to create demand, and you guys
We'll get your fair share later on also lah.
You'll have businesses,
In fact, better.
better.
Yeah. Wow,
So-
it's so wild. Oh my God.
Actually, it sounds like a very low hanging fruit here. Is if you just build a list of the top, let's say, 10,000 richest people.
Just tax them.
in the country.
They'll all go to Cayman Islands.
Yeah. And then you just go in and you scrutinize them line by line,
Mm.
right? Like your wealth is X, your income is supposedly Y. Y times infinity is not even X, right? Can someone please math this out for me, right? And it's going to be, I don't know, probably like unrealized gains in stocks or whatever the hell it is, right? This should be scrutinized line by line. And I think I reckon if you cover even the top 1,000 richest people,
It's
in
done
any
already.
country,
Everybody, poverty around the world, gone.
huge impact for very little work. And it's not even a structural solution that takes time to do.
And I
it's
bet the
just-
guy would just say, you know what, I don't want to go through this trouble, I'll just pay you.
But the thing is, right now, what they're doing is not illegal. They can keep money
Yeah.
in Cayman Islands. So you got to change that.
You got to change
kind-
this. Yeah, correct. That
got to
law.
change those structures.
Yeah.
In fact, there's something that the OECD has brought up.
Mm.
They're saying that there must be a global tax of 15% for MNCs.
Wow.
So if Malaysia gives less than 15% as a
they need to
investment
move up
thing,
to 15 now.
no. Let's say they come from America, they base companies there, and then they come to Malaysia. They only pay 10% here. You go back to America, you pay the other 5%.
No.
You top it up.
I see. To make up the difference.
So that's already been agreed under OECD. It's something about base shifting and something.
Sure.
It's already agreed. Only thing now Trump has said is pulling out of that lah.
Oh, sure.
First they came in, they agreed. So it's very low rate, 15%.
Yep.
But at least it's putting a
Something
15%.
there.
You see?
Yeah.
So you cannot pay less than that. So you must pay. If you don't pay in the country, in Thailand or whatever, you bully them, you're not paying there.
You
Come back to Europe, you pay there. So then in that case, Thailand can say, look, no point me letting Europe gain the taxes from
Let me just charge the full
I'll
15.
charge 15% here.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's already. So I think things like this are already in the process, in the pipeline. So we got to think of how can we improve it.
It's so strange how humans, right, we take so long to get to this point. Like this type of thing, right, it's like a 2-hour conversation you can talk about, right? Be like, hey, actually we should probably do that lah. But everybody doesn't talk about it. And then when you talk about it, you're like, oh my God.
No, I think this is why you need people to think out of the neoliberal box. And the neoliberal thing is the market is the best. You leave the market alone, it'll self-correct.
Yeah.
It'll allocate resources in the most efficient way. The best thing government can do is go and die. Don't come and catch up.
That's the right wing methodology.
That's the neoliberal thinking. But we are saying no. We will keep the market because the market is useful in many ways.
Yes.
But at the same time, the market needs regulation because the market can malfunction.
And people take advantage of loopholes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the big businessmen bully the small ones.
Definitely.
So there are so many things. So the market can. In fact, we want the market because Soviet Union. That's the other thing. You look at the Soviet Union. What happened to the? They had a planned economy.
Yeah.
There's a guy called Michael Leibowitz, a Canadian guy. He just passed away. And he did a big study, shortage economy and all that. And he analyzed why doesn't the planned economy work. And he says, and he's got a lot of good reasons because the way the incentives there, the way the people are incentivized, doesn't go for efficiency. Example, he says, the planners ask all the factories, how much can you produce?
Yeah.
Okay. As a factory, if you tell you can produce so many tons, they'll expect you to produce that. But if you produce more than that, you'll get a bonus.
Okay.
All right. So if so you get a bonus if you can better your factory, you can pay your workers.
Yeah.
So as a manager, you're concerned about your factory and your workers.
Yeah.
So you won't tell me, the planner, your full capacity. because you want to
will
get more than the 100%, right?
Understate. Yeah.
So you understand lah. And then when you produce also, you don't produce actually what you can, you produce just a bit more to get the bonus.
Yeah, not need to go more, ma.
Next year you can produce a bit more to get the next bonus.
Yeah.
Right? And then the thing is, you're telling me how much you need from this one, that one. So I know that if this comes in, you don't have enough of, factor A or factor B or your produce. So you tend to overstock all these things.
Oh no.
You overestimate.
Yeah.
You hold it lah, because then otherwise it's not there in the economy, then you cannot reach your production target, right?
Yeah.
So you hoard lah. So he went through the whole thing and explained why a planned economy
Doesn't work.
Yeah.
works, but it's inefficient. It doesn't work as well.
Because people will find ways to sort of just hit what they need to hit, and then in the end just let it be.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, you say you're producing shoes. You're producing shoes, you got to supply these 20 or 30 shops.
Yeah.
So you just supply lah. But
When-
if the
when
shop
more.
doesn't like it, go
Just
to hell
hold
lah.
it. Yeah. Just
Go to hell lah,
Yeah.
Whereas if the shop has got to sell it and they cannot sell your shoes, then they prefer buy shoes from him because his shoes can sell, and you can't sell your shoes, then it's a focus on you. Here now in that system, that guy's got to complain to me and say, hey, this fella producing lousy shoes, and I tell you, then give me a cock and bull story. You know what I mean? The market solves all that, is it?
Yeah.
So-
because it's honest, right?
Mm.
What is the demand, right? Oh.
So these are things. So these are kind of things that we have to study. You see, see what people have studied about Russia. Why did it work? It worked in certain things. They were able to produce nuclear missiles to rival America, right? Certain things they could produce. You see, iron and steel. I guess those things were easier.
Yeah.
But consumer goods, they were really bad. So I think we got to think of all these things. We talk of socialism for the next century. We got to take on board all these different experiences and not try and do copy paste something that didn't work.
Yeah, that's right.
You got to say, why didn't it work?
You just try to
And
change
then
it. For
change
the better.
it.
Yeah.
And wherever, like for example, people ask me, how about Cuba? I say, okay, if you think Cuba is a failure, which I don't think it is, but if you think Cuba is a failure, how much of the failure is because the concept of solidarity, economy based on solidarity, is itself intrinsically flawed? And how much of it is because of American sanctions since the 60s?
Yeah. That's why they drive all the cars are like
Really?
chop one, it's like part and parcel.
Yeah,
different
they're
models.
1950 models.
Yeah.
Go to Cuba, it's really cute. Those old cars,
Yeah, you mentioned in the podcast, right? You've been to Cuba. Actually, I wanted to ask about that. Why did you go to Cuba for?
My wife has got a sister in America, so I went to visit her.
Oh.
And from America to go to Cuba is very cheap.
That's
You
true.
can go.
Yeah, it's
So
not so
you-
expensive.
You're already halfway around the world. Why not just go and take a look? So you want to spend a week in Cuba.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Is it
really
expensive there? Out of curiosity,
very cheap.
very cheap. Huh?
Yeah, because everything. They have got two currencies. One is the local currency. One is the
160.
American-based currency.
Ah,
That's more expensive, lah.
I
But
see,
even then,
I
it's
see.
cheap.
got it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Very, very interesting.
I've seen it on YouTube before, and I just never believed that it was real. I'm like, huh? The car's still like that?
But the thing is, he went to a hospital.
It's
and-
great.
Great, but the doctors come to work by bus,
Wow.
right? And a bus driver with a 5 years experience earns as much as an ordinary doctor.
Wow.
Their economy is different,
Do you think culturally is it allows them to be like this?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah?
I think it's a political education. They came up in the system. And I think some of them are not very happy also lah, because they see they can't get handphones, they can't get internet access. They're still poor. But how much of the poverty is because of that system itself, and how much of it is because of extraneous factors?
Yep.
So I think we got to look at, as us, looking at how we're going to move forward. We got to look at all these things, But there's been a big democratic deficit in so-called socialist countries. We've got to accept that.
Yeah.
And we've got to see how we're going to overcome that. So I think we've got to keep our eyes open and then see how we go forward. And we need a lot of hands on board, a lot of
Yeah,
people,
yeah,
a lot of
definitely.
ideas. We've got to discuss it, think it, and look at what analysis have been done already, You don't have to reinvent
Reinvent
the wheel.
Yeah.
Have you spoken to many economists regarding this entire structural proposal that you have in a way? Like, I always feel like if you have a team of like economists with you that could explain all this, right? Well, I think it would be solid, man. I feel.
There are people working on it,
Huh?
There are people working on it. In Malaysia, even in Africa, there are people working on
It'll
it.
be so interesting. You got like elite Avengers team, the economists, right? Then you just
Yeah.
like from Thailand, from wherever, and then they all unite the ASEAN.
If you ever set up that team, Doctor, just sign me up, man. I'll apply it. I'll try my luck. Lah.
Yeah. We're already trying. We have like we call it a bureau Kajian Dasa and PSM,
Oh.
where we are trying to work out papers on this kind of things. Working, but we're also not that clever in some of these things, like things like stock market and investments and all that. We're still trying to learn. Maybe I'll send you what we're working on. You can have a look at it.
Yeah,
and
I
see
would
what
love
can
to.
add in.
I would love to. Yeah.
Fascinating, man.
But this is the kind of work that we need to do. We need to bring about some of these things. I mean, basically, of a society that's more based on solidarity and sharing the wealth.
Yeah.
Over
But,
the sorry. Please
yeah.
continue. Over.
Yeah, but it's got to be done in a phased way.
Ah.
That doesn't upset the apple cart. And you got to see and you got to learn from the previous examples.
Mm.
So I think it's work in progress. But I think the thing of coming out of colonial past, we're just coming out. We're taking baby steps. We've done some good things.
Still early lah.
Yeah, still early.
Yeah.
So I won't say
Be so
emigrate from
critical.
Malaysia. No, don't hope and all that. I think stay here and fight in a good way. Fight and improve things.
Over the years, right, of you start like with PSM and everything. How many youths have joined you like every year in doing like volunteer work or assisting with this entire move?
Quite a lot.
Yeah.
Quite-
Like, has there been uptick or is
Yeah.
it gradually?
it's going up.
Yeah.
It's going up. In the, they told me, I think about 25 or 30 joined after the elections, the latest elections
Yeah.
in Ayakuning. Got about 30 new members joining up.
Oh.
So people are coming in.
I think it's. I always don't see it, so maybe it's because I'm living my own Klang Valley bubble, lah, right? And then like I always think like I don't know, the world is doomed, lah. You know? And then like it's only when you really speak to people, or when your ears on the ground, then only you start to see actually there are a lot of things that a lot of effort is put in.
But look at China, for example.
Uh,
I don't think everything in China is fantastic, but the way they've overcome poverty,
it's crazy.
improved the infrastructure in just 30 years,
Yeah.
and if you look at them per capita, they're nowhere near the US. US, I think, per capita will be about 3-4 times higher per capita.
Yep.
Means the wealth in US is much more.
Yeah.
But even the lesser wealth per capita, they have managed to do so much, which just tells us how with the wealth of society is better managed, how much you can do.
Mm.
Not only, I mean, India, here,
Yeah, I see your point.
so that shouldn't be saying nothing can be done,
Because they can just manage it better, lah, right? With what?
They're doing, yeah, of course, so that's their part. They had a communist party, they had a revolution, they had a single party state. There's some things on their side for those kinds of things.
It's just
And-
kind of wild, now that you say that.
Yeah. I mean, in China, if you were in China and you had a disagreement with the Communist Party, I don't think it's a very safe thing to do. I think in China, you can be in the Communist Party and argue issues. But you're outside,
Yeah, then it's seen as a threat or
Threat.
enemy. Yeah.
because the CIA will use you.
Yeah.
It's also a threat. In a way,
They
the CIA would love to get a group
Yeah.
to kind of
Plant
start
them in there.
and plant them and have some color revolution. So China and Vietnam are very, very harsh. You do, let's say you do a proper kind of, it's a real issue, let's say environmental issue, and you take it out in the public and not go to the party, they'll jump on you and put you inside for tax evasion or something.
Yeah, some kind
You
of
know?
crime lah, they will find. Yeah.
So that is there. So that is happening. But you can also see why they're doing it. Because otherwise they allow this kind of things to grow. The CIA will come in and stir it up and try and collapse them, right?
But it's so strange also lah, because over there, right, I think they've taken it to a whole new level. Like I've did a couple of projects there, and like it's so strange when you speak to people there. You can't speak about certain things. Can't speak about like Tiananmen Square, all these little things. They're like, hey bro, don't talk about it. Later my WeChat gets banned, I can't pay for it. I like the punishment is so unique. It's like you just restrict them from living their day-to-day life. Because you can't really pay, right, without a QR payment system there now. Yeah. So it's like they've gone that whole different spectrum. It's like, I gotta be real harsh on a lot of things. So the freedom is already
They got to think of how they can open up.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think there's a lot of discussion within the party. Within the system is there. They discuss, they fight, they discuss and do things. But yeah, that's a deficit.
Yeah.
So you got to be aware of that. So I'm not trying to say China is perfect.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. It's just an example that we can take.
But I think they're doing pretty good overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All things considered, doing really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom said when we were in Shenzhen at the time, she said like when I came here 30 years ago, I was like, oh my God, I'm making a U-turn. I'm going back to Hong Kong. It's a horrible place, fishing village, all that. Now she's like, wow, beautiful, crazy. Yeah, quite a big change in 30 years. So I feel like if we really dedicated a sort of effort, I think 30 years is not that long also actually, right?
I think in China, they may open up the space. you know.
Yeah?
They may open up the space because maybe start tribunals, can bring up issues. Outside the party can bring issues, will listen to you and all that. They might do that. They might. I mean, let's see. I'm hoping they'll do that.
I'm hoping the same.
Yeah.
Although I have my reservations. I think culturally, I think it's
a big jump.
Yeah, it's a big shift for them to make. I think within our lifetimes probably not. That's
Really?
That's my sense. That's my
Really?
sense.
Not without a lifetime.
I don't think
My
so.
lifetime, your lifetime, they can lah.
More or less the same in the grand scheme of things.
Before I end the podcast, I forgot to ask you this earlier. You know, you're born in an era, right, where you went through the May 13 thing, you know. How was it? You know, I asked my dad, and he's from Malacca, and he's like, nothing. That time it didn't really bother us. But did you feel any different during that time? Because you were a teenager around that time, right? What was your experience?
Well, we were in Penang
Uh-huh.
at the time, and Penang didn't
Penang
have
is
that much.
Really? Okay.
There was a bit. I know my father was, he's a doctor, right? So he was in hospital for a few days. There was some violence, but I think KL was the worst.
Yeah.
You know,
But then you don't really remember much.
I don't remember that much. I mean, I remember being in curfew, army trucks
Wow.
patrolling the street. They wanted to clamp everything down, make sure nothing happened.
Wow, so wild, man, to be born. But then again, I think like when it comes to my era, right, I feel way, way, way in the future, if a kid were to ask me what was COVID and lockdown like, I'll probably tell them the same thing lah.
It's unique in its own way, I suppose.
Yeah. So crazy to have gone through so much. I don't really have much left to ask, but like such a pleasure having this conversation with you.
Very insightful. I really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. No, man, like I gotta thank Chris. His moniker is Comrade Confucius. If you
Oh, really?
okay. It's hilarious, you know.
Okay.
I gotta thank him for recommending you as well. It's such a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
The excitement of speaking to you just built over time because I was like doing research, and the more research I did, I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna be crazy, man. You know.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I appreciate you coming all the way, lah. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Privileged to have you in person to speak to you as well. You know, I think it's a very different feel when you get to speak to someone in person.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You anything you want to shout out? You any link or whatever? I can put it in the description. I can put any register.
I mean, the PSM has got a website. You
Okay.
Go and look into that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. I'll place it in the description lah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
All
for
right.
coming on the podcast.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank
Yeah,
you so
no.
much for inviting me.
I hope you enjoyed it. It's
Yes,
a fun
interesting.
conversation.
Always nice to talk and yeah.
Are you heading? Oh, sorry. I'm gonna clap. Are you heading back to Ipoh?
No, I got something on